Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. Today we have a story of, ambition and conflicts between the church and the nobles. This is Burg Stahleck. Ancient Bacharach was once a famous place, and long before the fiery wine that grows there became famous throughout the world, it was in the good old times, as our grandmothers say. It was the delight of many a connoisseur abroad. About that time, its grateful lovers erected an altar to Bacchus, who provided them so liberally with wine. The place of sacrifice was on a huge rock projecting out of the Rhine between an island and the right bank of the river, and in honor of the god they gave the town the name it still bears. The inscriptions on the altar stone have become unintelligible, but the Bacharach folk know well to this present day the original meaning of them. Fishermen still keep up the old custom, but now more as an amusement. They dress up a straw man as Bacchus, place him on the altar, and surround him singing. The ruins of the castle of Stahleck are situated on the Rhine above the wild romantic country of Bacharach. About the time of Conrad III, the first emperor of the house of Hohenstaufen, a young ambitious knight, Palatinate Count Hermann, inhabited this castle. Being a nephew of the emperor, this aspiring knight considered his high and mighty relationship as a sufficient reason for enlarging his dominions. He conceived no less a plan than that of taking possession of part of the property which bordered on his land, belonging to the archbishops of Mainz and Treves, supporting his claim by declaring that for more than one reason he had a right of possession. The jealousy which at that time existed between the clerical and the secular powers brought a number of neighboring knights to his side as allies, and the count began his unprovoked quarrel by taking a castle at Treves on the Mosel by storm. This castle belonged to the diocese of that town. Adalbert of Montserrat, a man of undaunted character, was then bishop both of Treves and Metz. He at once collected his warriors to drive the bold robber from the conquered castle. The temerity of the count and his superior forces dismayed Adalbert, giving him grounds for sober reflections. But the good bishop was a clever man, and, not believing himself sufficiently strong to resist the count, he sought refuge in spiritual weapons. When his people were about to assault the stronghold, he made a most enthusiastic speech to his troops. Holding up a crucifix in his right hand, he told to them that in the silent hours of the previous night the archangel Michael had appeared to him, and given him this crucifix, and at the same time promising him certain victory if each of his warriors attacked the enemy in the firm belief that an invincible, higher power was near to help them. The bishop's words inspired his men with a great courage. Led on by the holy man carrying the crucifix in his raised hand, they marched on to the assault, stormed the castle, and made Hermann's troops flee in great confusion. The ambitious count, now finding himself deserted by his troops, was forced to renounce the feud which he had hoped to carry on against the bishop. The disgraceful defeat the count had suffered was most humiliating to him, but it had not killed his ambition. He now directed his thoughts to his other ecclesiastical neighbor. Having searched through some ancient documents, he thought he had found full right to a strip of land which Arnold of Solnhofen, bishop of Mainz, then held in possession. He at once sent in his claim to this mighty prince of the church, who received it with a scornful laugh. "Oh," said the bishop, tearing up the written complaint, "I shall be able to manage this little count as well as I have all along managed the stubborn people of Mainz, some of whom have bitterly repented of having rebelled against their bishop." Hermann was told how Solnhofen had treated his claim. In great wrath he swore to take vengeance on the man who had dared to tear up his complaint so contumeliously. His young wife implored him with tears in her eyes not to raise his hand against the servant of the Lord again, but he turned contemptuously away. Hermann was well aware that, through the influence of the bishop's companion in arms, he was now hated by the citizens of Mainz. This circumstance made him determined to rob Arnold of land and dignity, as he ascribed the cause of this deadly dissension to the power the bishop exerted over the people of his diocese. The count, now joined by several daring knights, again prepared to make war against the representative of the church and marched to attack the bishop in his stronghold. Arnold was enraged at this persistent striving against the dominions of the church, and his dark soul conceived a dastardly plan to rid them all of their enemy. He hired 2 villains who treacherously put the count to death. Soon afterwards, the rebellious citizens of Mainz successfully stormed the bishop's palace and turned the cruel prelate out of his episcopal seat, whereupon he was obliged to flee for his life. But Arnold was not so easily subdued, and he soon returned breathing vengeance. His friends warned him in vain, and even the famous prophetess Hildegard of Rupertsberg sent a messenger to him with the words, "Turn to the Lord, whom you have forsaken, your hour is near at hand." But he heeded not this admonition, and at last he was killed by the rebels in the abbey of Jakobsberg, some distance from the town where he had taken up his residence. And that is the story of Burg Stahleck, a tale of war between the secular and clerical powers. This is Dan Scholz from the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As always, thank you so much for listening.